Who are our favorite flex plays, deep sleepers, and prize picks for Week 16? We break it all down for you. If you give us our final thoughts there for Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, only on Locked On Fantasy Football.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NFL fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Fantasy Football Podcast. We're your destination to become the smartest fantasy football player in your league. We're part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, your fantasy football team every day as well. As usual, I'm one of your co-hosts, Vinnie Iyer. I'm not doing this. I'm learning about NFL betting and fantasy for sportingnews.com.
Hey, I'm Michelle Magdziuk, researcher at NFL Network and fantasy analyst for NFL.com.
All right, Michelle, we will get into our kind of back end thoughts here for the week as we wrap up our Week 16 analysis. We'll each give three guys that we like in the flex, three deep sleepers, and then get in our prize picks of the week there to help you win some money there. So a lot of good stuff. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. The easiest, most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use the code all lowercase LockedOnNFL for first deposit match up to $100. Now, Michelle, we did get some people off to a good start there. If you played Chris Olave or Puka Nacua or Kyron Williams, you're feeling good. But look, you might need some help with the other spots. Don't think you've got this wrapped up here early if you had one of those guys, or if you didn't, you got to make the right decisions here. So let's dive into it here. Give me your three favorite flex plays for Week 16.
Yeah, so two of them are in the same game, and it's a game I'm not looking forward to, but it's the Bengals against the Steelers. I have Diontae Johnson and Tyler Boyd as two of my favorite flex plays this week. So Diontae Johnson has scored a touchdown in each of the last three games, and Mason Rudolph is starting, and really the only guy that Mason Rudolph has a connection with is Diontae Johnson. They did play together back in 2019. That's when Diontae Johnson was a rookie, and Diontae Johnson led the team in targets when Mason Rudolph was a starter. Again, he was a third-round rookie at that time, and Mason Rudolph still looked this way. So they actually have that connection. And then we saw that the last time Mason Rudolph started was back in 2020. He made one start week 17. Diontae Johnson had a nice game with 96 receiving yards in that game. So I'm looking forward to seeing their connection. I think he's the wide receiver to start on the Steelers this week, especially with all the stuff going on with George Pickens right now. And then on the other side, Tyler Boyd. So I don't actually know he's going to cover the middle of the field for the Steelers. They already struggle in that area to begin with, but they're down to their third string safeties. Their first string safeties are out. Their second string safeties are out. And even one of their third string safeties is questionable to play. Patrick Peterson will likely be playing at the safety position, and they have no inside linebackers healthy either. So the middle of the field is going to be wide open for the Bengals. You expect Joey Porter Jr. to be on T. Higgins. So I think Tyler Boyd's going to have a really nice game. He's going to have the potential for some big chunk plays, right? So I like that for Boyd in this matchup. And then lastly, it's Jerick McKinnon, running back for the Chiefs, going up against the Raiders. I know Isaiah Pacheco's going to be back, and obviously he's my preferred running back for the Chiefs. But Jerick McKinnon, I still think, is in a prime spot when it comes to PPR leagues. Right now, Sky Moore's placed on IR. Marquez Valdes-Scantling can't catch a ball. Kadarius Toney is just so incredibly bad. And then you have Travis Kelce either dealing with his age or his health. We don't know, but he's struggling as well. So it's really just Rashee Rice. And then I think Jerick McKinnon's going to get more involved as a receiver in that offense. The Raiders are giving up the most receiving yards to running backs this season. So I really like Jerick McKinnon in this matchup as well.
Yeah, we talked about that, and Jerick McKinnon has a pretty good history. So does Clyde Edwards-Helaire. So does really Isaiah Pacheco against the Raiders. They seem to get their running backs producing well there in this particular matchup. So I like that call. And Boyd, look, the way they use him a little bit is going to be, as Michelle mentioned, they're going to see some things open up wide there. And Chris Olave did a lot of this work. If you watched the game a little bit last night with the Saints, like he just ran into a little bit of a cover two and just like cover three look, I should say, and just kind of sat there, right? And there were a lot of plays that were available over the middle of the field. So, yeah, that's what I think, as you mentioned, with other injuries, that's how they're going to have to play it. So that's how things are going to be opening up. And Diontae Johnson, look, he's been the only kind of confident Steelers asset to play here without Kenny Pickett. So again, play him and hope for the best. Now, my 3 picks, Michelle, are from all AFC South teams. I don't think I did this intentionally, but it just happened that way. Now, the first guy I have is Noah Brown. It looks like Nico Collins could return this week. If Nico Collins does return, then you have him getting the tougher matchup against Denzel Ward. And look, they have a pretty good slot corner too in Greg Newsome. Where they're a little bit weak is on the second corner. They have a young player, Martin Emerson, there. So Noah Brown could be rolling here. And it looks like Case Keenum is going to start again. We know they had pretty good chemistry last week, so that's good, right? 2 veterans that can connect here. So the Browns defense, we know, not as good on the road. Simply not. They're, especially against the pass. They can be thrown on the head here. So I think Noah Brown is the matchup that Case Keenum is going to isolate on most and exploit as much as he can in this game against Cleveland. Now, next player is Josh Downs. It looks like Michael Pittman is in the right track to be cleared here for this game with an extra day. So that's good news. It's actually better news for Josh Downs because now you'll get Michael Pittman Jr. versus AJ Terrell in this game. Now, they're pretty weak in the slot. They have, I think, former Viking Mike Hughes has been the guy there that is in coverage, and he was kind of a cast-off, right? He didn't work in Minnesota. Josh Downs has been very quiet of late, but one thing I know is Gardner Minshew is not really forcing the ball downfield to Alec Pierce. That's been the limited thing that we've seen in this offense. Downs has been very quiet, but in this type of game, it's a controlled environment in the dome. There's going to be no passing issues here. There's going to be tension on Pittman, and there's going to be some things open up for Downs. So I think he has a rebound game where he's more viable as a flex play this week in deeper leagues. Then Tyjae Spears, just a bit of a leap of faith, just thinking that he's going to get enough touches here. Derrick Henry was really bad last week. I get there's some reason sentimentally to get Derrick Henry involved, right? If you're the Titans, it's maybe his last couple games here in this uniform, maybe for the fans and whatnot. It is Christmas. Maybe kids have been dying to see Derrick Henry or whatever. But they also have to think about the future. And Spears is the future. His type of running can give the Seahawks some problems here and also pass catching. So these are 3 guys. Again, this is why they're flex. They're not comfortable as wide receiver 3s or RB2s, but this is where I'm going to play them this week.
Yeah. You know, with Noah Brown, he always has that potential to just go completely off. It's so crazy with these Texans wide receivers this year.
Yeah.
How many of them have just gone off for like over 140 receiving yards? It just happens, I feel like, once a week there. Josh Downs, I've already been hurt by too often, so I couldn't put in my lineups because I was feeling him, right? In the middle of the season, I really thought he was going to come back from that injury and start to perform. We haven't really seen it. I did think about putting Tyjae Spears in this list of mine. I really, really did because I want to see it, right? And it's a really nice matchup. It's just like you brought up. Do they feed Derrick Henry? But they're already eliminated from the playoffs, right? Like,
yeah,
get your youngins some carries. I could see a good game from Tyjae Spears. I did consider that.
Yeah, let's hope. I mean, and next year, look, these guys, Tyjae Spears, we'll talk about another guy, Chase Brown, like that. And some of these guys are in position to take over and be big fantasy assets for us, much bigger in 2024. We'll get into our deep sleepers next. And I've dug really deep this week, Michelle. I'm going to just tell you that because I'm hurting, and I'm going to also use this as a way to see if you would play any of these guys in a league as your third wide receiver. So we'll get into that here. But first, we got to hear from one of our fine sponsors. All right, this episode of Locked On Fantasy Football is brought to you by DoorDash. Here's the handy bag that I have right here. That if you need to get something for yourself during the holiday season, or maybe last minute gifts or anything that you need from the grocery store that you're trying to take care of here before the rush of the holidays, and we know Christmas is just around the corner. It's Monday. Yeah, so you only have a couple more shopping days if you're getting someone food or anything like that. Maybe you don't want to go out there and shop and brave all that here in the last minute. Well, DoorDash has got you covered. And look, you just may be hungry and you just want to hang out at home, avoid all that mad dash, and get something from your local restaurant, where it's pizza or Thai food, anything like that. They're going to cover you in all those bases. You get 50% off your first order there when you spend $50 or more, $10 value that is available there on your first order when you download the DoorDash app and enter the code LOCK23. Again, that's very easy to do. DoorDash app is great. You can just quickly see all the places around you that deliver, whether it's a grocery store or a restaurant, and know how long it will take to get there and all that good stuff. So they're going to take care of you. It's great. You can track the app, and I know exactly when you're going to get your goodies delivered to you. So it's a lot of convenience there right at your doorstep, literally. So check it out, DoorDash app. Get 50% off up to a $10 value when you spend a good 15 or more on your first order. Just download the DoorDash app and enter the code LOCK23. Subject to change. Terms do apply. All right, Michelle, it is time to continue the show here. And I'm going to introduce my sleepers with a warning here that they're very deep. So I'm going to let you go first on your guys this week, and then I'll say how deep mine are, and then you can debunk them all and say I shouldn't start any of them.
I will say one of yours you're listed. I almost did it. So one of them I'm open to. But my three are Parker Washington Jr. Is he a junior? Parker Washington, Jaguars, wide receiver.
I think you're thinking of Ray Parker Jr. from
maybe against the Buccaneers. But I really like him this week. Like, honestly, this is a guy I would be happy to have in my lineups. Of course, he's a sleeper because he is a late round rookie and he hasn't really ever had like a boom game, right? But he's getting a ton of time on the field with Christian Kirk out. He has a lot of routes run, especially out of the slot, fourth most among all wide receivers across the NFL since week 13, since he's got this time with Christian Kirk out. And then on the other hand, the Buccaneers defense, they've allowed the second most receiving yards out of the slot this year, according to Next Gen Stats. Parker Washington has a touchdown in 2 of the last 3 games. And so I was going to really like Zay Jones in this matchup because the Buccaneers are just bad against all wide receivers, right? But it seems like Zay Jones is going to miss time. With Zay Jones out, that's only going to lead to more playing time and more targets to come to Parker Washington. So I actually really like him in PPR leagues. And even with the touchdowns he gets, he's okay in standard as well. And I'm going to name another Bengal. I'm a miserable Steelers fan, right? So I'm going to go Chase Brown, Bengals running back. So he had another 10 touches last week. Like, he's not a guy you can trust to get a lot of touches, but he's really good. And we saw Tyler Goodson and Trey Sermon go off on the Steelers last week when Zach Moss went down. It doesn't matter who's running the ball, right? And I do expect the Bengals to win in this game, be up. So maybe that leads to even more touches for Chase Brown. But I just don't expect the Steelers defense to be able to really stop anybody. So Joe Mixon should have a great game, but I also think Chase Brown's going to get his touches, be efficient with them, and then maybe even get more touches towards the end of the game if they're up big. And my last guy, this is definitely risky, right? But it's Khalil Shakir, Bills wide receiver, going up against the Chargers. So the Bills really need to get their passing game going, right? I know they're going to run a lot, as they should. James Cook's going to have a good game, but they have to get their passing game going. Stephon Diggs is struggling because teams are really focusing in on him. Gabe Davis has become a ghost. Dalton Kincaid is dealing with injuries and also is becoming a ghost. So Khalil Shakir in the slot. The Chargers really, really stink at covering the slot. And even Trey Tucker last week, he hasn't really done anything all year in his rookie season, right? But for the Raiders, he got that long touchdown out of the slot last week against the Chargers. I think that we could see one of those type of plays with Khalil Shakir. So maybe more DFS. If you're making a DFS lineup on Saturday, he's a really sneaky play there. But also if you're desperate for a wide receiver 3 or a flex play, Shakir could come up with one of those big plays against this really bad defense.
Yeah, I mean, they do have to tune it up. It's kind of been weird. They've had like multiple mini seasons, right, on who the go-to guy's been. There's been like a little Stephon Diggs love, then Gabe Davis, then there was Dalton Kincaid, and now it's the James Cook show. So somebody else has to get involved. You're right. I mean, this is not going to work in the playoffs if they're a one-dimensional James Cook type running team. This is a good tune-up game for them against the Chargers. Secondary, Parker Washington. There's a couple factors. I'm not sure that they help or hurt him. I think they actually help him, right? If Zay Jones is out and Trevor Lawrence is out, you might have a lot of short passes, right? You might not have the ability to throw downfield as much against the Buccaneers. And you also think that the game script could suddenly become really negative, right? I mean, the Buccaneers could really pass all over the Jaguars and then create high volume for CJ Beathard, and that could really work out in Parker Washington's favor. So I like that. And Chase Brown, yeah, the matchup has been really good. The Steelers have given up to multiple backs, it seems like every week now, especially with their middle of the field gutted. Now, the first guy I really like, and I couldn't get him in my league. I don't know why he's sitting on some team out of the playoffs. I just don't get it. We just can't get anybody at wide receiver. So this is the problem, and this is why I have to bring up some other guys here. But Jameson Williams, I feel like this is a great spot for him to make a big play. I think they've been looking for it. He just hasn't been there in recent weeks. And really, all the receivers not named Amon-Ra St. Brown or Sam Laporte have disappeared a little bit. There hasn't really been much of a Josh Reynolds sighting. Khalif Raymond is barely a blip on the radar. They need to make a big play in this game at some point. I think Jameson Williams can be that guy. Now, I don't know if you'll get like a Rashid Shaheed or A.T. Perry, like free reign down the field and make that play, but he has the speed to do that. And this matchup really lines up for him against the Vikings. So Jameson Williams, I'm going there, overdue for a big play touchdown. Now, the next two, Michelle, I can't believe I am throwing out Giants and Jets names here, but I have to do it. The next guy is Xavier Gipson. And I looked at this. The matchup is really good for him, of course. It's the Commanders secondary, right? We know it's really good for Garrett Wilson. Now, Trevor Siemian might start, which is not necessarily the worst thing because this guy is at least better at spreading the ball around to the wide receivers, right? So I think you could see a little less Tyler Conklin and that stuff and maybe just aggressively throw it downfield. There's nothing to lose at this point. The Jets are out of the playoffs. Just rip it downfield. The Commanders stink. And Gipson is a sneaky playmaker. And if you look, Trevor Siemian and Gipson have a little bit of thing going on. Just watch that. And it's like a connection there in the slot, and the Commanders really stink everywhere on the field. And really, he's their second best wide receiver for whatever that's worth behind Garrett Wilson and then Tyler Conklin at tight end. So something to watch out there. And this is next, totally a deep shot play as well. Darius Slayton, he's getting a lot of targets here from Tommy DeVito. He's starting in a good spot here. There's no Darius Slay, so it's no Slayton versus Slay this week. He's been hurt. So you could get the rookie Keely Ringo in there from Georgia. So that is really good, right? If you can get a rookie and attack that, James Bradbury's slow on the other side as well. So this could be a sleeper spot for looking at Jalen Hyatt too. But I do like Darius Slayton, being the veteran, being the guy that DeVito trusts a little bit. He's played well in this matchup before. So Gipson and Slayton are kind of my dart throws here in deeper leagues that should be available for you if you're really hurting at wide receiver 3 or flex. And look, all three of these guys, great DFS values. You're not going to pay up a lot and you can take a shot, and they're exactly what you're looking for, right? Just guys that could blow up on big plays with very cheap value.
Yeah, I mean, Xavier Gipson, every time he makes a play, I'm always like, wow. Like he looks extremely impressive. Like you're like, wow, who is that? And you're like, and then you see it's Gipson. You're like, you remember him because of Hard Knocks, right? And I'm like, that I put that together. He looks super talented out there. Now he doesn't get enough consistent volume. Obviously, that's why he's never really brought up in our shows. But he in this matchup, and like you said, with the connection he has with Trevor Siemian, he could end up having a solid game. I just to give you some confidence here for Darius Slayton. There was a few years ago I had to play Darius Slayton in a playoff league. I was predicted to lose by so many points. Like this other team, it was actually my wife's team, she was just stacked, right? I played Darius Slayton. He put up 3 touchdowns in that game, a massive game. So I just saying, maybe there's something there. Maybe Darius Slayton will come through for you in a playoff game like he did for me and help you win. But I mean, you couldn't ask for a better matchup, right? So Darius Slayton could have a big play in this game. So I think I could see the path for all three of these guys. Obviously, if you had the chance to go with Jameson Williams, that would be my preferred go-to. But like you said, he's not there. So I think go with Darius Slayton or Parker Washington if he's available.
Yeah, that's where I'm leaning right now, but we'll see. It also helps that I had Puka and Olave last night, so it takes some pressure off the third decision. But hey, you guys might have a tougher decision out there. So look, it's the end of the season. There's a lot of guys hurt. We know how many guys are hurt, and you're probably trying to be desperately filling some holes. So that's why we're giving you all this advice and our last minute thoughts here. And we'll have some prize picks for you as well. Some bigger names in that edition here to close week 16.
Yeah. We'll each give you our favorite prize picks of the week. But first, let's hear about prize picks and see how you can join us in making those picks. So if you love playing some daily fantasy or haven't even tried it out yet, definitely you should try out PrizePicks. PrizePicks is a skill-based, real money daily fantasy sports game. How does it work? You pick 2 to 6 players, and if they If they go more or less than their PrizePicks projection, you can win up to 25 times your money on any entry. PrizePicks adds a ton of excitement to the sports viewing experience. Players can choose from a vast selection of sports and stat types not offered anywhere else. What they also offer is a reboot policy so that your entries stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. So if you have a player who exits the game in the first half and does not return in the second, that player is rebooted and will not count against your picks. PrizePicks is the only daily fantasy sports platform with an injury insurance policy. Trust me, that is so huge. But Vinny and I will go through our favorite PrizePicks of the week in our next segment. To place those picks with us or other picks for this week's slate of games, all you have to do is go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, that's prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. Daily fantasy sports made easy. All right, Vinny, let's hop into our favorite picks of the week. You can go with your favorite three first.
All right. Let me see which order I like them. Okay, I'll start with David Njoku first. Look, this number I saw, and I'm like, yeah, I'm going after this. It's more than 49.5 receiving yards against the Texans. The Texans are one of the best matchups for tight ends all season long. It's the way they play their zone defense. They open things up the middle field. David Njoku is doing things he's never done in his career. It's weird. He was a first-round pick, and they kind of didn't use him enough in the passing game early. He's been a valuable blocker for them. And they paid him, and now he's actually producing big time because he has a quarterback in Joe Flacco that's getting him the ball everywhere and anywhere. And I love his hair. This guy has some great hair. I love it when he's getting interviewed. I think he plays hard. Maybe he's been one of those unheralded players that finally the Browns realize, look, he's a great blocker. He can do these other things. Let's try to get him involved in the passing game and to a highest level. I just don't understand why it's taken so long to unlock him this way. But he's here. He's arrived. 49.5. That's the way you attack the Texans. It's going to get easily done in this game. Now, James Cook, I don't necessarily want to force myself into the rushing number on him this week because what if the Bills have a big lead and they kind of rest him and all that kind of stuff. But I think they want James Cook still to make some big plays in this one against the Chargers. The Chargers do give up quite a bit in the passing game to running backs. 24.5 is his number. And remember, this is James Cook's strength. This is his calling card, getting open in the passing game, getting downfield. And Michelle mentioned that way that Khalil Shakir can get involved. Well, it could be one of those games where it's a lot of Shakir in the middle of the field. You have a little bit of Dalton Kincaid, a little bit of Dalton Cook, or not Dalton Cook. I got him conflated with Dalvin Cook and Dalton Kincaid all at the same time. James Cook is he's been that good. He's better than all those players combined here of late. But when you look at it, 24.5 is just like, this is a great number to kill, especially it's something he does really well. And he can do this in maybe one catch, two catches. It's not going to take you much to do this. And you can come early in the game. They design a screen for him. You're golden here, James Cook. And finally, we're going back to the Bryce Young rushing well this week. Now, let me tell you something about the Packers. They play some weird defense where they just stand back and allow a lot of things to be developing, right? I mean, we've seen this with Joe Barry. They just played awful defense the past few weeks. And part of it is, again, they're so afraid of the big play and give that up, and maybe because they have some injuries. But they also allow some ridiculous rushing games. When I say that, it's not like running quarterbacks necessarily. Justin Herbert had more than 70 rushing yards. Tommy DeVito had more than 70 rushing yards there against the Packers. They just turn their backs and let the quarterback run if he wants to. Bryce Young's number is at 13.5. We hit this 2 weeks ago when he just made one play and he hit that. So I think we can hit this again. 13.5. I'm going with it. Look, Bryce Young has been good for fantasy, but man, he's good for a couple scrambles every week. And this is a good chance here. 13.5. I mean, I couldn't pass it up. It was too much on a plate for me, Michelle. I know I'm crazy with these rushing props, but I know at least you have one of these for quarterbacks as well.
Yeah, well, actually, I went with, yes, I have two quarterback ones, but I want to go with my first pick that I'm most confident in because I think that it makes no sense, his projection. Brock Purdy, right? Let's start there at quarterback, and then I'll give you my rushing quarterback. But Brock Purdy, more than 252.5 passing yards against the Ravens. I get it. It's a tough matchup, right? But Brock Purdy is averaging 318 passing yards per game at home this season. Sure, like you could take into account the tougher matchup that still gives you a 60-yard cushion. Like they could keep him to 60 yards less than what he normally gets at home, and he's still going to get more than 252 passing yards. Purdy has had over 280 passing yards in all but one home game this year. That one game he didn't was 252 on the dot, so he would have missed it by a half a yard. That was against the Cowboys, who they beat 42-10, and Sam Darnold played nearly the entire fourth quarter. So he had 252 yards in 3 quarters, right? I don't expect this to be a blowout by the 49ers. It should be a super close game. He's going to have to throw all game long. This is such a smash for me. And then when it comes to the rushing quarterback with you, it's a lot more than Bryce Young, right? Bryce Young only needs 13.5. Justin Fields, on the other hand, needs more than 56.5 rushing yards. Ooh. But he's against the Cardinals, and he has hit this over 56.5 rushing yards in 3 of his last 4 games. So 3 of the 4 games he's played since coming back from injury, he has had more than 56.5 rushing yards. He didn't hit it last week. He only had 30 rushing yards, but that was against Cleveland in Cleveland. Tough defense. The Cardinals, on the other hand, have allowed the second most rushing yards in the NFL this season. So they're going to be able to run. It's going to be a close game. I don't really know who wins this game, but it's going to be a close game. I think he's just going to run all over them. I won't be surprised if he has 100 rushing yards. So I really like him having more than that. And then lastly, I'm going to go with a guy I chose as a good flex play this week. Tyler Boyd to have more than 34.5 receiving yards against the Steelers. If I think he's going to be a good flex play, then I obviously think he's going to have more than 35 receiving yards, right? He's hit this in 9 of his 14 games played this year, including 2 of the last 3. He had 53 receiving yards last week when they needed him because Jamar Chase, got injured, missed a big part of that game. He's not going to be playing this game. And everything that I said earlier about the Steelers defense, like he's going to be wide open in the middle and have a chance for those huge chunk plays. So I really think he's going to have much more than 34.5 receiving yards.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good call. And again, we've talked about this a lot. If you feel confident really about something, just go in on it. Don't worry about it. I mean, if you feel good about it, just don't say, okay, but I don't want to put myself at risk. But if you're that strongly about it, passionate about it, go for it in every format you can have. And this is what I love about PrizePicks and every other avenue you can do this in. So I love it. Michelle, those are really good picks this week. And look, this is the best chance right now. I mean, some of you are out of your seasonal leagues, but you can still do PrizePicks for 3 more weeks. So get in on it. It's going to be fun. You're going to have some downtime to watch these games. So make it more exciting. Get into PrizePicks and play these for sure. And look, these are our final thoughts for week 16. So good luck in all your fantasy football playoff and DFS endeavors this weekend. Have a Merry Christmas if you celebrate. If not, just have a great happy holidays and enjoy the time off. We'll be back here Tuesday. We'll take the Monday show off on Christmas. So just letting you guys know that. For Locked On Fantasy Football, this has been Vinnie Iyer, and go ahead.
And I'm Michelle Magdziuk. Bye, y'all.
Bye. Merry Christmas.